Hello, this is Wayne Roseberry from Software Testing. So this morning I wrote an outline, a testing outline for a product called TestRail. It's a test case management system. I'm new to the product, never used it before, and I wanted to convey the experience of writing an outline for something, even if you've never seen specifications, design docs, source code, had any conversations with anybody, because I want to show you a fast way to make this outline, just using exploration as your basis for doing it. And so that's what I did. The video itself runs around 30 minutes. I edited a lot of it down to cut it there. So there's some parts missing, but I've got most of the feature. I focused in on one feature area because I believe outlines should focus in on single feature areas instead of getting really fat. And even at that 30 minutes, I probably really am looking at 10 to 15 minutes of outline creation because I narrate as I go through. And so a lot of stopping to talk. It really doesn't take as long as that. It's kind of easy to do and easy to get a start. And from that, once you've got the outline, it's the basis for everything. It's basis for your analysis, your exploration, your testing ideas, and to talk to other people and say, how does this look? Did I miss something? Should I do more? And such as that. Even if you wrote the feature, sometimes this exercise is a good one for you to organize your thoughts. So let's take a look. I think it's a easy, fast exercise, and I show an easy way to get a start. So let's go.
What I am doing now is creating a test outline for TestRail. I have decided to create an outline for the add project feature in TestRail because I like to keep outlines focused and on chunks that are easy to describe in smallish units. We can go bigger than that, but I like to initially work with smallish units. So TestRail is a test management tool. It helps teams and testers manage their load of cases, suites, and runs. Uh, and it's an organizational tool, an editing tool, result monitoring tool, and such as that. I have never used TestRail. I just started the free trial minutes ago. So this is my first time looking at TestRail. I briefly read the front page of the website for TestRail to get an idea of what the main feature set is. But I know nothing of this. So this is me creating a test outline from the beginning, knowing nothing else about the product other than what I've heard about it from marketing literature and what I am looking at right now. Okay. So, and I've chosen add project because it comes up right away. So it's easily accessible. I don't have to dig in too far to get there. And I wanted to capture this brand new, never seen it before experience because I think this is something that a tester sometimes has to deal with. But at least I can demonstrate how we can cut through this debate about how much you need to know to be able to test. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the starting of a testing outline for a feature that I am really just seeing now for right now. Okay, and I have chosen the add project feature. So let's just put quotes around that in my test outline document. Okay, and I prefer let's just call it a name, add project test outline. Okay, so now Word will call it something other than document 2 or document 1. I prefer using Word just because I'm a longtime Word user, but you can use anything. Sometimes I write these in Notepad. Okay, some people like to use spreadsheets. Some people like to use mind maps. I like my outlines in this inside Word. Now let's go over here. So first thing, I stopped and started this video from the initial add project introduction because I want to see it as you first get introduced to it. So let's just make a note here. And we're going to probably need to reorganize this as we go. But just to make a note to myself in the outline, new user experience, right? Because I did just create this as a new user. and I wanted to see if the experience is different. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, coming in new, but I'm going to call it new user experience, and we can maybe change it if we need to or not. But this coming in, we see that we're directed into the all projects page with the add project, add example project, and the add project button. So there's the add your first project to TestRail prompt. So I'm just going to add first project prompt. Okay, I'm making note of that as being a thing, right? And then underneath that, we've got add project, and we've got add example project. Now, so right away, you'll notice I'm being very rote here. I'm just typing what I'm seeing because I'm not thinking too hard. I don't need to think too hard. I'm letting it guide me. But I'm also not writing full sentences. A person could even use less words than I'm using. I'm just doing what I can to make this easy to capture what I've got. But I'm noting that there's a different little box here, right? There's the add project, add your first project prompt, right? And we've got underneath it are two different options for adding projects, adding a project, adding an example project. But then we've also got, I don't know what it's called, but I'm going to call it the tool well. And this has got the add project button. And by tool well, I'm referring to the piece that's over here on the right hand side. So let's just even put right hand side first menu, just to, if I need that to remind myself. Some people would even take screenshots of this, just like, grab this and put it in here. I'm not going to do that right now, but some people actually like to create these as a set of screenshots and pieces. Especially mind map oriented people like to do that. It gives you a good visual. But we've got the add project button. And also notice we've got the project stats, right? It's like active completed count. And we might detail that out later, okay? But right away, notice we've got this much structure in our outline, right? This is what we've got. There seems to be, when we look around this, and this is actually inside of, hold on, if we think about this, this is inside of a dashboard, right? And so now we could take all of these and just say, okay, these are subordinate to the dashboard. Whereas this, well, I don't know if it's subordinate to the dashboard or not. This guy and this guy seem to be peers, so I'm going to keep it this way. But also, I noticed that, like, inside the dashboard, we've also got these view controls. We've got detail view, and we've got a different view. What is this? Compact view, detail view. So I'm just gonna make a note of this. Compact detail view. Let's just say view mode on that. Okay. So that's a feature of the dashboard. We may or may not feel that this dashboard stuff is part of the add project feature or not. I kind of like talking about it right now because it's an entry point into the feature. And it's useful to talk about not just a feature, but its entry points in and out. Anyway, we've got this tool well, we've got the project stats. What have we got here? I am not even sure what this is. You know what? I'm going to explore. I'm going to find out what is this thing, this 7. Quick starts, announcements, documentation, integration tutorials. Okay, so it's a bunch of guides and help. I'm going to just guides and help. And I'm going to include this. Just make a little note to myself. I may not decide to include this under the scope of this particular outline. Right? I might decide it's something that's always there, or maybe it's contextually tied in. It's something to explore and look at. Okay. But anyway, I've looked around this. I am not necessarily seeing more on this screen right now. The screen does have some resizing behaviors. I am not too sure if those are part really of this feature or just the general UA framework of TestRail or not, but it's interesting to notice those. I'm going to I'm not going to mark them up in the outline right now, okay? Because what I'll do is I'm just trying to capture pieces and parts, and while technically this is pieces and parts, it's going to come out more from an exploration of maybe the details on this when we talk about, okay, the functional behaviors of this versus, just UI behaviors versus data flow behaviors versus sequence and stuff. So I'll get that in a later analysis. Looking at the rest of the UI, this seems like everything else here is possibly outside of that same context. Administration, when's my trial expire? A bunch of stuff, let's pop out of there. So you know what, there's a quick start up here, but I'm gonna at the moment decide that that's out of scope of the add project feature. It might be integrated and it might be something to check on later, but I'm gonna decide it's out of scope. But let's consider this the first part of our add project outline, okay? And now let's try going in a level. So I'm gonna click the add project button, okay? And take a look at the screen that I got. All right, there's a lot going on here now, okay? You see they've got this screen that pops up with a bunch of parts on it, a bunch of pieces, and that's largely what we cover in our outline. But let's pop back a real quick second, and let's compare that to this add project. So you've got the add project under here and the add project under there. And superficially, it looks like the same thing. I could possibly try really going into detail and comparing it, but I would do that after writing down what I see in one of those. Meanwhile, if I look at this, I say add example project. Okay, so this gives an entirely different experience as I was anticipating. It's add example, add it in project and example project TestRail and contain sample data, so test cases, results, and milestones. Okay, so this is this is like a wizarding thing here. So let's go ahead and leave that alone for the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat it like its own feature now. Add project screen, right? So that's the actual add project screen versus the add example project wizard, right? And let's make note that it's I'm just going to remember that it launches, the add project screen launches from here and here, just that it's got 2 launch points, and then this guy, we'll also remember that that's there. But let's go into the add example project wizard. And the reason I'm going to do that, sometimes these add your first things disappear when you get to a certain state, and my bet is that the example project wizard might go away if this add your first project to TestRail prompt goes away, if it does or if it doesn't, and I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to launch that one first, okay? Also, let's get a new to TestRail documentation link. I think it's interesting to look at the documentation around a feature. So let's go ahead and make a note of the getting started link that is under this add your first project to TestRail thing, because I want to remember that was there, and because I like to see, does the documentation line up with what's on the screen and in the product and stuff. So it's a reminder to get back to that. So let's go to the add example project wizard. And the first thing, as we noted before, was the add example project name screen. And this has got name. I mean, you notice I'm not following a really formal structure, just enough for me to note what the parts are. So this is the name field, add button, cancel. button. Okay, so those are the parts that are in here, right? And I'm going to just do enough here to Wayne's first project. I'm just going to call it that to see what happens if I go to the next thing, because I want to capture the parts here for the sake of the outline. Um, but we've got that thing, so we know that this thing exists. We can come back to it later and flesh out what we want to do with it. Let's go add example project. Let's see what we get. Like, what's the next thing we get doing that? Is it a wizard, or are we thrown into the project? Takes a little while to spin it up. Okay, it is, and then we get new project page at create your first test case. So notice that we're in this create your first test case feature that's up that links us to where the test cases are, which is I'm not going to go into outlining the behavior of that because I'm considering it a separate feature and I want to focus on this add project thing. But it's good to note that it's here. It's like, when does this create your first test case thing come on or off? You know, like, if am I going to lose this if I go away from it or not? And that may be correct, but it's good from a testing perspective to realize if there is you're going to lose it, if you want to know how to get that thing back so you can check its behaviors. So I'm going to close this little dialog right now. I'm looking at the project. And I've considered that captured under this new project page thing, just to know that this is where we land. And so the interesting thing to look at here are things like, what state we wind up in after creating a new project and such as that. But let's go try to find that dashboard again, which is return to dashboard. So I'm going to hit, and actually I'm gonna make note of the turn to dashboard link. Okay, that's there. It's just a thing that gets us back to where we were. And if we note, see, so you notice there's some things going on here. We've got yes, the add first project prompt disappeared. Okay, so we've learned something about the functionality, right? And likewise, the statistics. I've got one active before it said 0, and there's a to-do on this list, right? So that's actually nice to see. Where did I have that? Project stats. And so, underneath that was to-do list of projects, right? With something in it. I don't know what the 241 is. That's something for me to learn about. But this is part of this experience, this dashboard experience, the relationship of the projects to the things around it. So we're capturing that as we go. We've got, there's a bunch to this clipboard. There's downloading, copying things, resetting, changing the nature of the chart as far as I can tell. I'm not going to flesh out this dashboard so much as the add project experience, but it's good to know that the dashboard, let's go to the I'm not sure what to call this, the projects chart. And there's things in the projects chart. There's project view control. It's got things like download, copy, reset. Okay, I'm just making note of these things. Not that I want to consider them their full behavior in scope for this outline, because I have a feeling this dashboard is probably far richer than the add project experience, but I want to understand the relationship of add project to what happens on this dashboard. Okay, and so now I've got the project list below it, so we can capture that later. But now let's go into the other part of the experience that I didn't capture. So add project. And that is far richer than the other one. Okay, and because we're not being given an example project, we have to provide much more of this ourselves. Okay, so first off, there's several things to look at. So we've got the main panel, and that's what I'm calling the area underneath Add Project that has these tabs in here. So I want to capture those tabs. I want the project, I'm going to call this tabs. Okay, and so I'm going to capture the project, access, defects, references, user variables. Okay, and then likewise there is the tool well, because if you notice the tool well on the right changed on us, and we've got overview, projects. Oh, or did this is interesting. Is this okay, so this is about, it went from yeah, switching away from it. So the tool switched into an interesting mode. It's not scoped to a list of things that are about the project. Now this is like a list of things that are about my TestRail integration. So this is an interesting thing to note. I mean, it's not good or bad. It's just learning more about the behavior. But we're looking really at my my overall TestRail account site status, not that project specifically. So let's go back into in the projects view. When I click the projects view, I've got a separate overall list of projects versus the main project, right? So that's an interesting thing to do. To note is that the projects tab is either switches between, let's just say project specific versus all projects, right? Because now we're back to a thing that has the add example and the add project wizard, which is kind of cool. We've got a list of the project we're looking at, but we're not on the main dashboard. See, if we go to the main dashboard, we lose that list of things. I'm just going to put overview, and let's go back to add project. Okay, I just want to capture what's in there. Overview, projects, versus and roles, customizations, integration, data management, and site. I just want to capture what this changed to, but they're really not about what I'm even doing right now. And if I click on projects, it pops me out of that view. If I go back, do we get, okay, we get back in if we go back. So really, this tool well isn't even really about what's on the page, but it's there. And so the relationship of it to the thing, I'm going to keep it in here because it's interesting when we start looking at testing around this feature, its relationship to this tool well. So I'm going to keep it there because it's really close to the project, to it tangentially. And then under each one of these, well, let's take a quick look because there's a lot to record here. And I'm just being mindful of the time. I'm going to do it all. And if this is much longer than anybody wants to watch, I'll just edit the video for convenient length. But the key thing is what I want to do now is I want to start capturing all of the things that I see on these tabs, right? And let's see if I can do it as quickly as I can. Okay. Name, announce. We've got the show, announce checkbox. We've got, yeah, I'm going to call this repository storage choices. This thing here that says use a single repository for all cases with baseline support, multiple test suites to manage cases. I don't know what these mean right now, but I'm going to call them repository storage choices for the moment. Okay, and then enable test case approvals. Enable test case approvals. And just want to make a commentary of where we're at so far, right? We're one click deep into this. Well, 2 clicks deep, right? We're 2 clicks deep. We had the initial add project page, and then we're down into adding a specific project, and we've also gone into the wizard. We are learning now a lot about the feature just by looking at the behaviors and crafting our outline, right? There is, there's these, I guess, mundane aspects of name and announcement and the options on showing or not. But now we're starting to learn more about the architecture of the system. It apparently is very important to say whether you're using a single repository or with baseline support or multiple test suite to manage cases. And they're recommending one of these over the others. But the question is, what is going on in the system if we change these? They're suggesting an important implication to the behavior, to the end user, so much so that you got to choose one. They didn't just give you an option. They're actually giving you choices. And so this is going to affect the testing later. And so we're learning a lot now about the system. And then test case approvals. What is a test case approval, right? And what does that flow look like? What does that experience like? What does that do to a project? If a project has test case approvals and you turn it on, what does it do to it? What does it do to the test cases? What does it do to the results? How does it affect the end users? And there's a whole set of implications of just a checkbox like this existing. You can ask things like, if I create a project and I do a bunch of stuff with it, and I turn that on, and then do some stuff, and then turn it off, and do some more stuff. What's going to happen? So we're getting these fascinating discoveries now, just looking at what we're doing and collecting this into an outline. Let's just call it new project, and let's just leave it at all the defaults and say add project. Confused myself. Yeah, new projects on the list. It's got that. So there we go. Let's shrink that down. Let's take a look at our outline. Right. We have 2 pages of outline here, and if you look at this, there's actually a substantial amount of stuff. And everywhere where I've got these horizontal lines, these would probably be vertical as specific items, because you can think about each one of these as having their own things to think about. Like name, what are the valid values? What is what happens if it's blank? How long can the name be? What if the name is the same as name as another project, et cetera, et cetera. So each one of these you can think of as having different problems. So I'd really expand them out, but I was just trying to be fast and short. So this is the outline that we got. I want to talk a few things about it. First off, it doesn't have to be really formal, right? I didn't even really use real formatting to get this indenting. If I turn on things, you see I've got tabs and stuff like that, because I don't want to think too much about laying it out. I just want to capture my ideas fast. I am not using full sentences. I don't even know the real names for these things. I made the names up as I go, because I can deal with it later, figuring out the right names as I learn my way around the app. But this allows me to go faster and collect my ideas. I really like indenting as a way of indicating like how I'm grouping things together and how I relate things. Some people like other ways. Some people like mind maps, which lays it out visually. That's great. That's fine as well. So long as you're a way of expressing group and relatedness, things that come from other things, I think that's important, but otherwise you're fine. And the thing that you can do with this is, now that you have the outline, you can come back to someone else and say, this is my outline of the feature. I'm taking this from the dashboard, which is where I found the initial add project and add example project buttons. I also found them after the end when I'm looking at the project screen. So I found that there, and I say these seem to be, I can make this declaration. There's 3 entry points to add a project, to the main add a project thing. There's the first project prompt, there's off the tool well, and there's from the project tab off the tool well that you can say add a project. And then in your first project prompt, you've got add example project there, and likewise off the project tab, you've got add example project. And then you can say in that this prompt seems to disappear after you've made your first project. And so that declaration alone, I've said, here's the 3 ways to get to the add project screen. And someone can tell you, oh, you missed one. There's a way to do it from, and they'll tell you something else. And you go, oh, thank goodness, let me fix my outline, right? And then you can ask a question. You can say, so I noticed that this new user experience thing in the dashboard was gone from the moment I did anything. I need to test this. I need to go over and over and over to say what happens about this, what happens, and check its relationships, and I need to use it more than once. How do I get it back? There's a whole bunch of questions that can form around saying, does this look complete? Is this missing something? Did I put something in the wrong place? Are there behaviors here that I don't know about? And that's a conversation you can have with someone else regarding this particular thing. But and also, as I mentioned along the way, there's a lot of relationships that we saw as we went along. We're seeing settings on projects that suspect whole architecture and subsystems. We're seeing relationships of things like the global integration settings. There is an override relationship between projects and global integration settings. There's this notion of accounts and people and groups and access control that are going to affect something else in the system when people try to do things. There's integration with plugins, right? Whole set of plugins that we interact with. And so just creating an outline like this starts to give you a picture of the app that we didn't know was there. I didn't know any of these things just minutes before starting this video. And now I know about them. I know that there's something there and there's something else to look at, which is really a lot of what this is about. And I'm going to call that done for right now on this outline, because what you would do from this point is go into details, talk to people, get clarification, and start your investigation into testing ideas. So thank you very much.